Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello, welcome to a new episode of I Can Do. So excited. We have another fantastic guest with us. We have actually already had one podcast. It just was not recorded. So now we're on podcast episode number 2. I am joined here today with Monica Kaufman. Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
It will be fun, and I appreciate you very much and looking forward to learning a lot from you. You are doing many things connected to money, to finances. You're a certified financial planner. You have a long history with financial planning, I believe, angel investing, and so much more. I'd love for you just to get us started before we dive into some particular questions. How did you get on this path of being a financial planner, getting into investing and more? Walk us through that. Take the next couple of minutes to share your story.
Okay, so a couple of things. I started off life and economic research, and I'm an extrovert. In case people can't tell, I'm an extrovert. I need people. I like people. If you have me crunching numbers all day, every day, and not interacting with people and not actually demonstrating that I'm solving a problem for people, that's a bad day. Okay. And that's a bad year. That's a bad month. That's a bad decade. I did not like that. And I wound up leaving economic research, starting my family and working with small business women, and then wound up building that out. And what I loved about it was I was problem solving. So what do we need to do to get the business up and going? Do you need me to answer phone calls? Do you need me to write letters? Whatever. We figured that out. And after doing this abroad, I was in Israel, um, and seeing the power of doing it and problem solving with that, I really wanted to own my own practice. And I wanted to find a way to apply what I knew and what I'd learned in such a way that I could actually help people. So around that time, my husband had his first issues with depression. And all of a sudden, I started to understand personal finance on a different level. But I also was introduced to something called cognitive behavioral therapy. And I was introduced to the work of Aaron Beck because it was the key thing that helped him get off the ground, and it helped him get up and start to rebuild his life. So I have this enormous respect for CBT. And then I wound up going into financial planning. I wound up getting a job at Merrill Lynch. I got a great opportunity, and I started to learn the system. And, push comes to shove, you have different things happen. But one of the things that happened was we relocated, and then my husband wound up with a cancer diagnosis. And then my
I'm
son,
sorry.
well, he's fine. Okay, he's fine with
Good.
that.
Oh,
That's he still has the depression. That's a challenge, but that he got
right.
through. And we went through a whole bunch of series, and I stood back a little bit on the financial planning piece because I needed to be there for my family. But I wound up doing other things connected to it, and including was a chance to develop a course and deliver it for my kids' middle school in Arizona.
Mm,
And that course was what I called economic and financial reality. So here's the economics concept. Here's what it means in finance, and here's what it means to you, and just sort of linking it all the way through. Again, that mind map thing. And I realized that really the data within the financial planning world is that we're several generations into people not understanding how their money works.
right.
And we're also several generations into people having a very dysfunctional relationship with money. And I saw that in the kids. So there were some children who were getting lessons and learning things from their parents just by osmosis. The parents were teaching them how to function and how to do all that. And then there were other kids whose families were not teaching it for a variety of reasons. And I literally saw it right in front of me. So came back to moved to Texas, and long story short, wound up working with angel investors, well, with CPAs who were getting solicited, or their clients were being solicited by angel investors, working through
Mm,
that. And I said, forget it. If I'm going to do this, I want to have my own book of business. I'm going to go into back into financial advisory. So I went full throttle.
okay.
And then during the pandemic, when I saw people who were making a tremendous amount of money and who knew better, not be able to live the changes they knew they needed to make, and making mistakes because of the emotional things that were getting in the way, all of that cognitive behavioral therapy exposure and training that I had, practical training, not official, came roaring back. And I thought, what if I could do a system where I help people rebuild the mindset into a healthier way so that
Mm,
they could actually live the changes they need to live and correct some of the weird things, the money scripts that were written for them. Money scripts are basically beliefs on money and identity that are given to you, and they're set by age 7. So
I
you have
like
a
that.
money script, and unless you intentionally work to rewrite it, it was not written by you, and it may have worked for somebody else, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. You don't have to stay stuck. You're not a plant. You're not a tree. You can move. And what I decided I wanted to do was to actually build out that program, which is what I did. So I came over to Harmony a little over 5 years ago, and the intent was to build out that program, which is what we've done.
I love that. I love that. Money script, that's something. So you're talking also about Harmony Wealth Academy, correct?
Yes. So, and let me just go into money scripts. Money scripts are the terms that were used by psychologists who first worked on identifying them. And there are 4 major money scripts that have some issues with them. And we have nobody really fits into only one. You have 4 major ones. But what we've discovered after several years of watching financial therapists is that if you really want to actually see changes in people's behavior, it's not listening to all the lectures or all the podcasts. It's you deal with the underlying psychological script that was written for them, the programming, that operating system they have inside. Once you deal with that and then you start teaching and coaching in a supportive environment, you can see dramatic change.
Mm,
You will see everything change. And it's just one of those pieces that people don't understand. So they think all they need to do is read or they need to go to a program. Some of those programs have some great things, but if you don't deal with the psychology underneath,
right.
chances are you're not going to sustain anything worthwhile.
Yeah, I love that. I'm thinking about myself right now, Monica, with money scripts. So growing up, and I appreciate your vulnerability. Before we were recording, now that we're recording as well, my father was not around that
Mhm.
much. He became an alcoholic. He was physically abusive to my mom. So money, it just always felt tight.
Mhm.
We were living paycheck to paycheck. For a time, we were on food stamps. I don't know if they call them that anymore, but I mean, there used to be the food stamps you had to tear out of the little, box or whatever it was, little booklet, at the store. And I'd get embarrassed because I'd see a friend there or something like that. And our cars were always like on the verge of just collapsing. And there was one car in the back seat. You could like see the lines of the road because there's like a
Oh
hole,
my God.
like in the floor. So I saw my mom working so hard. I mean, we would clean houses and she eventually got into becoming a receptionist and massage therapist, but it just always felt like those like were short. And it's like we're
Right.
always, trying to like catch up. And so that seems to be like a money script I probably had as well, where, okay, if you get something, either, hold on to it, devour it, whatever the case may be, because it's going to just be gone here really quickly.
Right.
And so looking back, I can see some of those challenges with saving money and things like that. So how do we get to this point of shifting these mindsets? Can you give us a couple, give me and give the audience a couple of tangible things when we do feel lost and we know that yes, there's going to be a rainy day and we know all of this information?
Right.
How will you lead, or what recommendations can you share with us to
Okay, so
turn the other way?
one of the things that I've started doing, and what I've started doing is actually doing a separate workshop or sprint on money scripts. So
Okay.
I'm happy to give to your audience a link and they can participate in this. It is literally 5 minutes a day
Okay.
or less of listening to me, and then you go through a worksheet. Now, part of the worksheet requires you to reflect, but sometimes it's easier to turn around and say to somebody who's a friend, what's a friend? A friend is somebody who's going to want the best for you and the best out of you and believes that you can do it. So they're going to tell you what you need to hear, not always what you want to hear. Okay.
Mm,
But they're going to look at you and say, hey, have you thought about it showing up in this way? Have you thought about it showing up in this way? And that's all I'm looking for you to do initially. I want you to be aware of the pieces that are affecting you. and or what you have. And I will show you in the worksheet, where it's going to show up and how it affects you and what it costs you. So then the question is, if you look at this, looking at this is very simple. The issue is simple doesn't mean that it's easy.
Yep.
To change it is going to take some work. The question is, how badly do you want it?
Right.
And I can give you all the tools, I can give you all the coaching, but you have to believe in your heart of hearts that this is what you need to do because you're called to do it as a free person, that you were created to be free. And being
Yeah.
by free meaning responsible. You are responsible for what you think, do, and act.
Yep.
Okay. And so by taking ownership of that and by becoming very aware of how you speak to yourself, how you think of yourself, how you act, and holding yourself accountable, it works. Now, here's the other piece. Perfection is not the goal. I do not want you self-flagellating with this, okay? You're going to make mistakes, and unless you make mistakes, you don't learn. So I don't want there to be fear of that. What I want you to do is to say, this is just a set of tools in my hand. I've learned how to use other tools. I've made mistakes. I've learned. I've done good. Well, there's no reason why I can't do this here.
Okay. All
I want
right.
this demystified. So, like, for example, one of the things that I do is I'm very visual. So I have on the wall between my bedroom and coming into the part of the house is a set of calendars, dry erase board material. And I will have what's going on there. I have a calendar that I need to put up, but I have one that has when all my bills are due. So I can have automatic bill pay, which is a system. And I also have that visually so that I know there has to be X amount of dollars available to pay from the account where that's pulled from. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about creating systems. You can't do it with willpower because willpower will fail. You have to create systems that'll work on the worst day, not just your average day or your best day. So
Mm.
the systems, if you build the systems and you reinforce the beliefs, you are much more likely to make the long-term change.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And then another thing that I want you to do, and I said this to somebody, there was a young man that I was mentoring. I'm so proud of him. He's thriving. But when I met him, he was, struggling to pass his exams and whatever. He came to me before they got married and said that they were saving for their first house. And he looked and he said, how do I do this? I need to free up cash. And I said, well, tell me about your spending. Well, they spent a lot of money hanging out with friends, but the friends were really critical and important to them. They wanted that social network. I said, tell me about the friends. Well, it turns out they were all basically at the same stage in life. They were all
Mm.
basically looking to get married or in more stable, permanent relationships. They all had the goal or the aspiration of buying the house. I said, all right, why not talk to them? Instead of going out to a restaurant every weekend or to a bar or both every weekend, make a schedule and everybody goes to somebody's home on a Friday or on a Saturday on the weekend and everybody gets together, everybody contributes something. Okay, maybe a small thing of alcohol, maybe a small thing if that's your thing, and maybe a small thing of food. And tell me how much you saved by doing that. Well, it turns out they all started saving money. So by working together, they kept the group together. They reinforced the behavior of what they needed to do, and they created a system whereby they could actually start achieving their goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You have to work with the systems that you're in. You have to work with the environment that you're in.
Love that. Yeah. Systems, environment, people that we're around. I think that's something really powerful as well because they're going to have some kind of influence as well. Okay, let me ask you a series of rapid fire questions.
Oh no.
I'm
Should I be
looking, no,
scared?
I'm looking, no, you shouldn't be scared at all. I'm looking forward to these answers. Help the person who's listening who is really scared to look at their numbers. What do you say to that person who's just like, okay, I have a problem. I don't want to look at the interest rate on the credit card. What
I
wisdom are
understand
you
that.
going to share with for that?
I completely understand that. I 100% understand that. I've been there. I've done that. It's awful. Okay.
Yeah.
You are going to fall, but you can pick yourself up back up. The
Okay.
question is two things. That which you fear controls you.
Mm,
Okay. So do you want to be controlled by somebody else or someone else?
love that. Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to control yourself, here's the thing, break it into the smallest piece necessary for you to take it on.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Break it into the smallest piece necessary. Then what I want you to do is reward yourself for that. Not by spending money per se, but reward yourself with that. Nothing dysfunctional. All right. And then
Gotcha.
one of the things that I'll talk to people about is let's talk about habit stacking. Okay.
Yep.
So, one of the things that I like to do is I like to schedule once a week an accountability moment where I sit in front of my computer and I look at my account and I say, what's going on with the account? Okay. And I look at that calendar, what's going on, what's going to go on. When you do that, all right, you build that in. And sometimes when things are a little bit tough or a little bit tight, when you're running a business, you're looking at that and you think, I want to avoid it. How do I set it up in such a way that I'm not going to avoid it? Well, I have a ritual that I will do where I will get up, I will go to Starbucks. That's my bad habit, I admit it. I will go to Starbucks. I have an addiction. Freely admit that I'm not perfect here. There's no perfect, okay?
So
So
you're
I
saying we can have our Starbucks and do well with our money too, huh?
Well, the question is, what else are you doing? Okay. I don't have any of the other big ones, but all right, fine. So I will go to the gym, I will come home, I will shower, I will sit down in front of the computer screen at that point in time, and I will
Okay.
look at my numbers. And
Okay.
then I have something afterwards that I allow myself to do that is fun, that is impactful for me right after I complete it. Now, if you have, and I've seen this work with couples, get them on the same page.
Hmm.
Okay. And usually there's a discrepancy of knowledge, and you get them on the same page and they sit down and they meet and they work through it.
Hmm.
And, they will say, okay, we're going to have breakfast. Let's say it's Sunday morning or Saturday morning, whatever it is. We're going to walk the dog. We're going to have breakfast together. We're going to have the laptop right there on the table. We're going to go straight to that. We'll get it done. We'll wash the dishes, and then we're going to go have fun with this,
Mm.
and they'll have something scheduled. So they
Gotcha.
reward themselves from getting in. They start off on a high point,
Right.
they get it done, and then they shift and they reward themselves. And eventually it works. But I do know one case where somebody was really having a hard time with his numbers and he knew himself. And so what he did was he woke up every morning and the first thing he did after taking care of, personal items was he sat down in front of his computer and he checked his credit score and his bank account
That's what I'm doing.
every single morning.
Yeah. That's what
Okay.
I'm doing as well. Yeah.
And what you focus in on and what you pay attention to is where you'll see your improvement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So whatever the number is, it is. Okay. It reflects prior behavior. What are you going to do today? You
Right.
can't change yesterday, and tomorrow doesn't exist yet. So focus on what you can do today. Give me one small step that you can take today. I'm not looking for big leaps. I want small steps that are sustainable
I love
because
this.
that's
Yeah.
where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And you're going to have to forgive yourself for what happened in the past. And the only way to do that is to make a promise to yourself that you're not going to repeat it. You'll make different mistakes. Okay. But you'll learn from them too. The
Don't make
only
the same mistake. Yeah.
The only way, and even if you do make the same mistake, you're gonna figure out why, because
Right.
maybe you didn't understand why you made the mistake,
Okay.
okay? Here's the whole thing. I don't like self-flagellation. You have to be committed to the process of learning and the process of improvement.
Got it. Okay. Love
It's a
that.
process and it's about systems, and if one set here's the other thing, as you go back, like Windows, the first iteration of Windows stank on rocks. Second iteration of Windows stank on rocks. You iterate your way to greatness. You're not going to do it perfectly or even well the first time around, and that's
Hmm.
okay. You can't let that start you from stopping. Just start.
Love that. I want to go back to the couples real quickly here. I was talking to my wife, Nikki, and I were talking to a financial advisor. When we first got married, we've been married 21 years.
Mhm,
I believe it was a preacher or someone who said, you just have one checking account, you share that checking account. We have done something totally different this year where we have a fixed account. So regular bills that are going to be,
mhm,
paid mortgage, water, all that kind of stuff. I have a reimbursable account plan for what I do. She has her own account for spending and other things, and then I have my own account as well for spending. It has dissolved 95% of like money arguments and things like that. I'm curious, what advice do you have? Have you seen things like that? Is it just the
yeah,
two of us?
I have seen that.
Where it's just like, okay, we're just going to have four accounts. They get funded every month and there's a trust level. We've messed up a few times, but it's made the conversation so much easier.
Mhm.
What say you about that?
Okay, so every couple has to find their own system that works for them.
Okay.
However, okay, one of my favorite couples opened up to me how they did this, and when they got married, he had a lot of money from a family business. She had some money. She had lost a husband. Okay. Um, and what they did was they looked at what their bills were going to be, and they said, okay, in order to pay these bills, we're each going to give an equal percentage to a household account where all the bills are going to get paid from. And then you're expected to do the extra things like the shopping or whatever, okay, for yourself. And you're also expected to invest. And they did this. And what happened was the two of them worked together and they built trust. Took them a while, but then they had their first child. And once that happened, they bought a house and he turned around and went to the attorney and said, I want to dissolve the prenup. Okay, and he had considerably more money than she did. But it was because they realized that it was going to last, that this was a permanent relationship. They were committed to building a life together, and they had demonstrated it, and they demonstrated trust.
Mm,
Okay, now they still had to meet together and make decisions. Still had to go through certain things. They still had different tastes and wants on different issues, but they worked together. And they
right.
built that trust out because of this. So the whole point is you have to find what works for you as a couple. And bluntly, over 50% of marriages fail.
Yep.
And they fail because people grow in different directions or people aren't honest about themselves or with themselves, let alone with somebody else. So if
Hmm.
money's the tool you use to help you interface with the rest of the world to build your life, you have to learn to work together with money. And most marriages fail because of money issues. So this is just one of those tools. So however you start the relationship or however you can find a way to work it together,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. But the only thing that I would say to you is that I would challenge both of you to make sure that you are funding goals. So
Mm,
as long as you are funding your goals, and that includes retirement goals and other goals, if it's working for you, great.
yeah. Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, we are doing that. We are funding retirement as well. And
Awesome.
yeah, so I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, next question. What's
Oh,
the
I do
most
have one other thing.
Okay, please share.
I do have one other thing. If you're going to do that, I need you guys to create folders for each other or binders for each other
Yeah.
because evil stuff does happen. So in the event, God forbid something happens to you, you're traveling, you needs her to step in and take care of stuff, she has the ability to do it and
Right.
vice versa. And I had the opportunity to do some work with a couple recently. They hired me specifically because the wife was dying.
Wow.
And this is the first time that that was the reason why they hired me to do planning with them.
Hmm.
Okay. I love this family. I resent the fact, the only thing that I felt sorry about that was like personal was that I wasn't going to spend more time with her. She was that special, but she wanted to make sure that her family was taken care of. You have to have things organized, and having things scattered all over the place, like most people do, not being organized. That financial disorganization is a function of a bad part of your money script. And you really need to, when you organize it, you have an operating system and a dashboard, and it is easy.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. No,
That is something you need to do.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, you're right with that. And what we have too, either of us can see what's in the account, right? So
Perfect.
it's in the same bank, so you can pull up the app, you can see all four accounts if you wanted
Right.
to scroll through mine, or if I wanted to do that. So yeah, there is that access. I do think you're right with that. There are some other legal documents we need to update. It's been a while since we've done that, but yeah, life is short and we have no idea, what can happen. So I think that's extremely valuable. When I get my paycheck, one of the first things that I will do is set some money aside to give to the Lord. Giving.
Mhm.
What recommendation do you have? What's the most important thing for people to do with their paycheck upon receiving it?
Okay, you need to have a system approach
Okay.
where you're looking at this and saying, the money is here. It's a set of tools in my hands. What am I building with it? If I'm gardening, what am I planting in my garden and how am I taking care of my garden?
Okay.
So I want you to come at it with intentionality. So the idea of giving charity, is critical. And I believe spiritually that when we give charity, we make room for God to give us more.
Mm.
Okay? And how he gives us and what he gives us and when he gives us, that's in his hands. However, okay, I really do believe in that. My son is setting aside 10% of his after-tax income to go to charity as well. All right. The other one's in grad school. He doesn't have much money. That's a different conversation. But the point is, um, having that intentionality is critical, but also being intentional about how am I going to take care of my obligations, knowing what those are, and setting up that system so that you make sure that's funded, but you also fund the future goals. So, one of the things I work with people is I help them come up with a framework to measure how they're doing.
Okay.
And I borrowed it from physical fitness.
I want to hear
Okay.
that.
All
Or,
right. So
or
it's sort of
details you can share.
okay. Details I can share. Absolutely. So I borrowed this from some of the trainers from iFit.
Okay.
And they talk about 4 stages of health. So you have function, things have to work properly. So if I injure myself, I get knocked back to the function stage. I had pneumonia, I got knocked down to function. Health is when all the systems are working and working together. Okay. So, and then you go to fitness. Fitness is your ability to carry the load. So your level of fitness is the level of load you can carry. Okay. Performance is when you can go beyond that. So the financial world is the same thing. Do you know what your load is? Not just for your bills, but to fund your goals.
Mm.
And so, if for me, what performance means is that not only are you carrying the load of funding your goals, your future goals, and paying your bills, but you can go beyond that. That's what performance is. So, when you look at your financial life, instead of being sort of nondescript, is there a part of your financial world that's broken? Is your income broken? Is your debt broken? Is there something that's not working? Okay. Then you move into if everything is working, is it working together? Are you at the health stage? Then are you meeting your load or do you need help meeting your load? And by load, I also mean are you funding your goals? And then
Mm.
if you have extra after doing the minimum funding of your goals or what you really need to do to get the goals funded, then you have performance money. Okay.
Mm.
And as you expand, like with physical fitness, the more you do, the more that expands. So maybe you don't have to fund as much because you've taken care of things like paid everything off, whatever it is. Then you can take on more. You're still fit. You're able to take on more and fund more and do more. So
Mhm.
what I want people to do is I want them to step back and be intentional and say, where am I in my system? What needs work?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. And then start working towards that. You have to do the emotional pieces and the financial pieces at the same time. You have to learn both. You have to walk on both legs on that. Okay, I
Yeah.
hate to use that metaphor, but the reality is you can't go anywhere your mind hasn't gone before you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really getting to the wealth mindset, I would
Mhm.
say, right?
Yep.
With changing that, flipping the script. You mentioned goals. What's a realistic amount of financial goals in a given year? So, for example, I use the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt. He recommends 7 to 10 goals in a given year, break goals down quarterly.
Okay.
He doesn't have anything about money, but I've put some money goals in there from your perspective, financial goals in a given year. So as people get ready for 2026, what do you recommend of how many financial goals a person should strive to accomplish?
Well, I think that's really very personal. So, for example, you're not going to fund your retirement all in one year. You're just not. Okay. Now, you win the Powerball. Great. That's fine. But you're going to have to expand your capability and your emotional controls rapidly so that you don't wind up one of the people who's broke at the end of
Right.
that. Okay. So, what I would say to people is, I want you to turn around and start becoming intentional and learning how to master the system first. And that will come. So, for example, there are times when your needs for certain things will shift. So, you may need to take on debt to fund a goal. All right. So that's going to shift things. So if the overall goal is connected, every goal you have in life will have a financial price tag, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So when you look at that, you have to understand what that is. Now, with financial planning, if you want to do a strict view of this to apply it, Every account has a goal. Every goal has a time horizon. Every time horizon has two pieces to it. One is time to the goal, and the other one is time inside of the goal. So, for
Mm,
example, if you're paying for your kids' education and you're saving up to do so, you have however long it takes before they start their higher education. And then you have 4 years inside the higher education, or maybe you have longer. Maybe they're going to be an engineer and it's going to take 5 years. Maybe they're going to go to med school and it's going to take 8 years. Okay. So you really have to look at that. And then you have a risk tolerance for it. Okay. And that risk tolerance will determine all of those pieces, how you invest and how much money you put into it. So
okay.
with the financial pieces, it's not a simple answer. It's about understanding the system, being honest with yourself about what you want to achieve and what you can achieve with what you have,
Okay.
and then working with it to make it work. So it's not a simple analysis thing. It's a higher order because you've got multiple pieces going through.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
So it's one of those things. Part of my program is that I do have a planner that will be coming out with it. And I also do have a habit tracker.
Mm,
And the reason for this is we know that if you write it down as opposed to punch it into the screen, you are much more likely to focus on it and you're more likely to achieve it.
yeah. I love that. I love it. Why is it so hard for us to talk about money? We can talk about money on a podcast. I'm talking to you. This is the first time we're talking together. Nice to meet you. But it's like one of those taboo subjects. Like, is it embarrassment? Is it the shame cycle? What's been your experience with clients? Why is it so hard to talk about money with family?
With family?
Yeah, with
Oh,
family
that's
in
a big one.
particular.
That is a big one. That's a huge one. So my mother grew up with nothing, and my
Mm,
father grew up fairly well off. And my mother, her parents were badly hit by the depression, badly hit by the depression, and they had money and resources for her brother, but didn't have it for her. So she got her first job between second and third grade. And she went to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland back in a time when, there really wasn't a lot of financial aid. She worked, she pulled herself through that. She came from the wrong side of the tracks and she was a woman who went into the math department and was the only woman in the department. Okay.
mm,
So she broke all the taboos. When my parents got divorced when I was 6, all of my mother's money fears came crashing down. And
mm,
my mother has held on to that with both hands.
gotcha.
She got remarried 11 years later. It has been a great second marriage for both of them. They still love each other. They still snip and snark at each other, but they have very similar personalities, and that's why. But given that reality, my mother doesn't want to discuss money with her family. My mother has 2 sons who are surgeons who were both at the Mayo at one point. She didn't want to discuss her medical care with her sons, okay, until she was put into a position where she just gave up in frustration and said, "Help." So I understand that. So with parents and with family, there's this control issue. There's all the family baggage that comes with it. One of the things that the money scripts talk about is 2 of the dysfunctional ones are money status, where money is your status in life, okay? And then there's money worship.
Mm,
And
money
you
worship. Interesting.
money worship, where people worship money as a function of or manifestation of God's love or whatever, okay?
Ah,
And
gotcha.
so they're
Okay.
seeing it as something that it really isn't. It's a set of tools.
Yeah.
It's a set of tools, and you have to take care of them and you have to use them properly. But the point is that you need to work through the money scripts and figure out why. And then the other piece is that healthy families do teach their children about money. But the problem also is that when there's shame, when there's a money issue, or when people don't know what they're dealing with money, they don't want to talk about it. They're embarrassed.
Yeah.
Okay. And I look at people and I say, okay, first of all, there is no shame. There's no shame. I have heard stories from clients where we've had to problem solve because there's been an issue. Nobody winds up in my office as a financial planner, not as the coach for the money program, but for me to be the advisor unless something hasn't worked out well someplace else. Something has gone wrong. And I need to understand what that is. And then I need to understand if there's a problem that was never addressed. There's no shame here. Whatever it is, we can deal with it. There's no judgment. Okay. Everybody comes with baggage. I have my own. It's okay. Let's just deal with it. I have a couple of rules. One, tell me the truth, and the other one is don't use money as a weapon to hurt other people around you. Beyond those two, as long as you're honest with me, we'll deal with it. Okay, on to
Gotcha.
the third. Please do not play games with the federal regulators or the state regulators, whether it's the IRS. I don't want to deal with the IRS or the SEC. No. Okay.
Right,
If
right.
you think you can outsmart any of those people,
Yeah,
I'm not your person.
yeah.
Having said that, do you understand where I'm going?
I do understand that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. There's no reason to be ashamed. Whatever happened in the past does not
yeah.
define you unless you choose to sit in it and allow it to define you.
Gotcha. Yeah, and
I
that's
have
going back to that mindset again.
I have more respect for people who recover from mistakes than I do for people who never admit to the fact that they made them.
I was just thinking too, there's something powerful about confession.
Mhm.
And even with money, so we got someone, they have like the family share account for YouTube TV. So we like getting Hulu live so we can watch sports. So we get it like during the football season, right? I was like, man, this is $100 a month. I don't really think it's worth $100 a month, but we really like the NFL and college football. So, brother at church said, well, we were just talking. He's like, well, I have some extra family spots if you want me to sign you up through my YouTube TV. And I was like, yeah, this is perfect. Well, I had put my Hulu TV on pause a number of months ago, and I forgot that it was going to be unpaused and I was going to be charged until I
Oh,
saw the charge. I was like, so I did. I shared that with my wife and son because I had been talking like, no, I don't want to pay this $100 a month, and I ended up paying $100 when we already had something for free. But my point is, there is something that's small, but still $100. There is something about admitting, man, I messed that up, or why did I buy that? You know what I mean? And that's a hard thing to do, but I think there's great strength in doing that as well.
if you don't have systems where you track certain things,
Yeah,
you will by definition fail. Even sometimes the systems will fail, and you will learn more from the failures than you do from when it's perfect.
yeah,
Okay?
yeah,
So don't aim for the perfect, aim to learn and to improve.
yeah. Got it. Okay.
I love
Monica,
that.
I think I could talk to you for hours. I want to be respectful of your time. I am curious for those who are listening. And one, how can people find you? How can
Okay.
people work with you? Let's start there.
Okay, so we're right now redoing the website, but I'm going to give you a link for the sprint. And the idea behind that is you'll see that I'm actually going to offer a workshop on something that's related, and it's a sort of a mind mapping where you sort of connect in on some of the emotional issues. And it's for people who really say, hey, there's a block that I have from my childhood. I have several of them. Trust me, I have several of them. So I get it. And it's a question of actually working through some of that. Okay. We're
Okay.
going to walk through what that looks like on a mind map. Um, as we do this, it's a process. So when you do this, the idea is if you want to work with me on the mindset, there is the Wealth Academy and we have that. But start with us on the sprint and understand where that is because you're going to have to do that work anyways within the program.
Okay.
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 But I will also leave for you my email for people to reach me
Perfect.
and I respond to that. And if you come in through this program, I will absolutely give you a discount on that. I really want people to start. I really want people to understand and just so that we set the rules clearly, when you come into the Wealth Academy, I want you to take a break from being pitched it. I want you to not unless something's on fire financially that needs to be addressed, I want you to take a break. I don't want we're not selling you any products inside of this. None.
Okay.
Okay? Something happens, something catches fire, you need to deal with something, we shift and we move you from the academy over to the asset management. But primarily when you're with us, you're learning to learn and learning to use the system and figuring out how you want to manage this and go forward.
Gotcha. Okay. My
Okay.
son is 14. Is he too young to be a part of this sprint? Are there age
No, he is
limits?
not actually. That's ideal. Okay. And
Okay.
I will have a program shortly within the next few months for young adults who are moving
Perfect.
forward. And I call it the Launcher Program. And
I love
part of
that.
that program's a little bit different because a lot of young adults want help with things like professional communication, building out a professional network, how to think of their career, what does it take to build a career. all of the things that I wish I'd received when I was younger and that I know other people, my kids aren't gonna listen to me, okay, that's part of it, you subcontract that out. But the idea is to get them started so that
Yeah,
they can start understanding this. The earlier you learn, the easier it is. And
absolutely.
that program is literally designed for what I've seen work for young people.
I love that. All right, I'm definitely interested with that for my son and for all three of us. What do you want to leave? Please share a parting thought for the audience. We've spoken almost for 40 minutes. There's a lot to think about with money. It could be a word of wisdom. It could be an encouraging thought. Whatever, you have the final say.
I want you to be optimistic. I don't want you to live in fear. And that which you fear controls you. So if you're afraid of your money is controlling you. If you don't make those decisions, somebody else will. I want the power back in your hands. Part of the goal of everything I do when I'm working with clients, when I'm working with people in the academy, is to return the power to control your financial future to your hands. Okay. I don't want you dependent on anybody, including me. I want you to be in control.
Yeah,
So, having said that, I know you can do it. I've seen regular people do it. I've seen people who you would think are doing it not do it. Anyone can do this. You have to decide that you're going to. I don't say that it's easy, but I say that it is doable and I know you can do it because
I
I've
love
seen
that.
it.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
yeah.
So,
Monica, thank you so much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it. And looking forward to talking to you some more. And for those who are listening, be sure to stay connected with Monica. All that information will be in the show notes. Thank you so much,
perfect.
Monica.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody.